If I were you, I wouldn't show up looking that pathetic. The mistress said it proudly, mocking the lawful wife whose belly was heavy in her final month of pregnancy. Her laughter echoed through the hall like a blade. But the wife did not argue. She simply looked back with a calmness so sharp it made the mistress freeze. In that moment, her smile faltered, because she realized she had awakened a strength she had never noticed before. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from to support the channel. Jalea Rosewood had grown up in a world where elegance was expected and composure was demanded. Yet she had never imagined that pregnancy would make her feel so exposed in the very circles that once praised her. At 8 months along, her back ached with every breath, and her feet throbbed inside a pair of heels chosen only because they suited the theme of the charity gala. She stood at the entrance of the Whitlock Estate's grand ballroom, welcoming guests with a gentle smile, even though exhaustion pressed heavily on her shoulders. She reminded herself that she needed to maintain appearances for Calder. Her husband valued reputation more than sincerity, and she understood the rules of his game all too well. Calder Whitlock entered moments after the first wave of guests arrived. He walked past his wife without offering a hand or a word of comfort. His attention drifted to his own reflection in the mirrored walls as he fixed his tie with a practiced flick. His eyes moved restlessly across the room, as if searching for someone far more important than his pregnant wife. Jalea noticed the impatience tightening his jaw, and a familiar chill settled in her chest. She tried to focus on breathing evenly, reminding herself that the child she carried deserved her calm. The music softened when a woman in a red dress stepped into the room with confident strides. Her name was Elodie Laurent, a young art consultant introduced to the public as Calder's newest acquisition for the Whitlock Foundation. Her dress shimmered under the chandelier lights, revealing long legs and a posture that announced she belonged at the center of every gaze. She approached Calder with an ease that should have raised suspicion, but Calder accepted her presence as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Elodie reached out and adjusted Calder's collar with a smile so intimate that several guests exchanged glances. Jalea felt the weight of the gesture in her chest, but she remained silent because she understood the cruelty of public humiliation. Calder pretended not to notice his wife's discomfort and responded to Elodie with a quiet laugh. Jalea steadied herself and continued greeting guests, even as anger tightened her stomach. A server carrying a tray of red wine passed near them, and Elodie took a deliberate step backward. Her elbow brushed the server's hand with deceiving clumsiness. The tray tilted, and a cascade of red wine spilled directly onto Jalea's white gown. Gasps echoed through the room as the deep stain spread across the fabric. Jalea inhaled sharply, her hand instinctively moving to her belly, while the server apologized in panic. Elodie burst into laughter that rose above the music. Her voice carried clearly across the crowd. "Jalea, your belly takes up all the space. You move like a swan with broken wings, trying to swim through a pool of wine." Her tone sounded cruel rather than playful. Guests shifted uncomfortably, but none dared speak. Jalea's cheeks burned, and she felt the child move strongly inside her, as if reacting to the humiliation. She fought back tears, refusing to cry in front of people who were already whispering behind raised glasses. Calder approached at last, but instead of defending her, he frowned as if she were the inconvenience. "Go change your dress. Don't cause a scene." Elodie was only joking. His words cut more cleanly than the laughter around her. Jalea looked at him, searching for even a flicker of concern, but his expression remained cold. Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him that she was tired, that her feet hurt, that she needed him to stand by her side. Instead, she nodded because she understood that he would not hear her, even if she spoke. She turned toward the hallway that led to the private restrooms, one hand pressed to her abdomen. Every step felt heavier than the last. Behind her, the music rose again and echoed in the space she left behind, but she felt a growing storm within her chest. She understood that something inside her had shifted. The stain on her dress was only the beginning of something far darker than embarrassment. Tonight would be the last night she allowed herself to be humiliated in silence. The quiet of the hallway felt like a thin shield against the noise of the gala. Jalea walked slowly, steadying her breaths as she held her stained dress away from her legs. Her back throbbed, and her steps carried a heaviness that came from more than pregnancy. She pushed open the door to the private restroom, relieved to find the space empty. The soft lights and polished marble usually brought comfort, but tonight she felt only an ache that spread through her chest. She moved toward the sink and dabbed the wine stain with trembling fingers. Her reflection showed a woman who looked tired beyond her years. Her hair clung to her temples, and her eyes carried a sadness she had tried to hide for months. She whispered to herself, as if reminding her heart to stay steady. Just breathe. She knew her child needed calm, yet every breath felt harder to control. The sound of heels clicking across the outer lounge area froze her in place. She recognized the sharp rhythm instantly. Elodie had entered. Jalea remained silent, hoping the woman would leave quickly. Instead, Elodie answered a phone call, her voice loud and filled with irritation. Yes, everything is going according to plan, Elodie said, pacing with confidence. Her tone sharpened with amusement. Calder is handling the paperwork. He wants it done before the baby arrives. Once she gives birth, he will file the documents to declare her mentally unstable. Postpartum depression will be the perfect excuse. The trustees will not fight it. Jalea felt her pulse spike. She gripped the edge of the sink and swallowed hard, terrified that her breathing would betray her presence. Her stomach tightened painfully, but she forced herself to stay still. Elodie continued speaking without restraint. The trust fund belongs to the child, and if she is declared unfit, Calder gets full control. After that, she will be out of the picture. A clinic will do the work for us. She is nothing more than a vessel. The words struck Jalea like a blow. She blinked through a wave of dizziness. She had known Calder had grown distant, but she never imagined he would go to this extent. Her heart pounded with disbelief and sorrow. She placed a hand over her belly, sensing the faint movement of the baby, who depended entirely on her. Elodie let out a laugh, soft and cruel. Once she is gone, I will take her place. Everyone already sees me as part of the family. Calder promised that the house and the foundation will be ours. Jalea felt something inside her break, not quietly but with a sharp finality. She stepped out from the inner room before fear could push her back. The door clicked behind her. Elodie turned sharply, startled for a single second before her confidence returned. Oh, Elodie said, lifting her chin. So you were listening. She walked toward Jalea, her heels tapping against the marble floor. She leaned close, lowering her voice with a smirk. Good. That will save us time. Enjoy that belly while you can. It is the only thing you will get to keep. Jalea's breath caught, but before she could respond, a violent pain shot through her abdomen. Her fingers dug into the wall as another wave hit. She gasped for air, realizing with horror that her body was no longer reacting only to emotion. A warm rush spread down her legs, and she looked down to see a mixture of water and blood on the floor. Her voice trembled. Something is wrong. For a brief second, Elodie's expression flickered with panic, but it disappeared almost instantly. Instead of helping, she stepped backward and tightened her grip on her phone. She shook her head, muttering, I will get Calder, though her feet were already carrying her toward the door. She left. The door closed, and silence swallowed the room. Jalea leaned onto her knees, fighting the urge to collapse as another surge of pain tore through her. She spotted the emergency phone on the wall and forced herself to crawl toward it. Every movement felt like dragging her body through fire. Tears blurred her vision, but determination steadied her hand as she reached up and pressed the call button. Her voice came out strained but clear. I need help. Now. Her world dimmed, yet she held on because she knew she had to keep her child alive. She refused to let Calder or Elodie win. The ambulance ride blurred into fragments of pain and shallow breaths. Jalea drifted in and out of consciousness, clutching her stomach as paramedics worked around her with firm but calm voices. She heard one of them, a woman named Nurse Caroline, speak softly to reassure her. Caroline had kind eyes and a steady presence. Although she had never met Jalea before, she treated her with the urgency and care that Calder should have given. Jalea held on to that warmth, using it as an anchor. When they reached the hospital, bright lights and hurried footsteps filled her senses. Doctors lifted her onto a bed and guided her through the contractions that were coming too fast. Sweat covered her forehead, and she struggled to stay awake as waves of pain tore through her. She whispered, My baby, because that was the only thought that mattered. Caroline squeezed her hand. We will take care of you. Stay with me. The words steadied Jalia enough to hold on. The hours passed with a crushing intensity. The doctors fought to keep her stable as her blood pressure fluctuated. She felt as if her body were splitting under the weight of fear and exhaustion. She wanted Calder to be there, to at least show concern, but the doorway remained empty. Not a single familiar face appeared. The silence from the outside world felt like a confirmation of everything she had heard in the restroom. When the baby finally arrived, the room became a storm of motion. Jalea heard a newborn cry, thin and fragile. It pierced through the haze and brought tears to her eyes. Her chest tightened with relief. She tried to lift her head, but a doctor urged her to rest. Another nurse cleaned the infant with gentle hands. Caroline returned to Jalea's side and smiled. You have a daughter. The words reached deep into Jalea's heart. A daughter. A little girl who would one day ask questions about the moment she entered the world. Jalea wanted to tell her that she was born into love, not betrayal. She wanted her child to grow up knowing strength rather than abandonment. They placed the baby in her arms. Jalea looked at the tiny face, the soft cheeks, and the small fingers that curled instinctively. The infant's skin felt warm against her. Even through her exhaustion, she sensed a quiet resilience in the child's stillness, as if the little one had chosen to be brave for them both. Jalea whispered, I am here. I will protect you. 3 hours later, the door to the hospital room finally opened. Calder entered with an expression that mixed annoyance with forced concern. His shirt carried a faint scent of perfume that did not belong to her. Jalea felt the betrayal crawl back into her chest. Calder glanced at the baby but did not approach immediately. Instead, he checked his phone and sighed. I came as soon as I could, he said, even though she knew he was lying. Jalea held her daughter closer. She could not ignore the ache of being treated like an obligation. She asked quietly, Where were you? Calder slipped his phone into his pocket. There were important calls. You know how it is. She looked at him without responding. She understood everything he was trying to hide. His absence had spoken more clearly than any words. A nurse entered to check the monitors, and Calder took the opportunity to step outside. The door closed behind him, leaving mother and child alone. The silence that followed did not frighten Jalea. Instead, it gave her clarity. She realized that if she remained passive, Calder would take everything from her, including the child sleeping in her arms. As exhaustion pulled her deeper into the bed, she reached for the phone on the side table. She dialed a number she had memorized since childhood. The line rang once before a familiar voice answered. It belonged to Mr. Hadley, the retired legal advisor of the Rosewood family, a man known for loyalty and sharp instincts. Jalea spoke in a calm and steady voice. Activate the bloodline protection clause. I want a full audit from the day I married Calder. Hadley did not ask questions. He simply replied, Understood. Jalea ended the call and looked down at her daughter. Her eyes, though tired, carried a new strength. She had survived the night. She would survive much more. For her child, she would become unbreakable. 1 month after the birth, the Whitlock house felt colder than before. Jalea returned with her daughter cradled against her chest and a quiet determination hidden beneath a mask of exhaustion. She allowed her hair to fall loosely around her face, and she walked with a slow heaviness that matched what everyone expected from a woman struggling after childbirth. She understood that the only way to uncover the truth was to let Calder believe she had surrendered. Calder watched her from the edge of the living room with mild impatience. He offered no help when she climbed the stairs, and he did not ask about her recovery. His only concern was whether she would remain silent and compliant. Jalea lowered her head and let him assume she had no strength left. She murmured a soft, I am fine, whenever he asked trivial questions, knowing it reassured him that she would not cause trouble. Elodie soon became a frequent visitor. She walked through the house with the confidence of someone who believed she would soon live there. She approached Jalea with a falsely sweet smile and asked, Do you need help with anything? The tone made it clear that she expected the answer to be no. Jalea simply nodded in silence and held her daughter closer. Her quietness encouraged Elodie to grow careless, and that was exactly what Jalea needed. As days passed, Calder and Elodie became bolder. They discussed private business matters in the hallways, assuming Jalea was too distracted to understand. They celebrated purchases made with company funds and spoke openly about future investments meant to benefit only themselves. Jalea listened to every word while pretending to be lost in the fog of a tired mind. One afternoon, Jalea waited until Calder left for a meeting. She carried her daughter to the nursery and placed her gently in the crib. The baby stretched her tiny hands, and Jalea brushed a finger along her cheek with tenderness. "Everything I do now is for you," she whispered. The child blinked softly, offering a sense of calm that fueled her resolve. Once the baby slept, Jalea moved through the house with purposeful steps. She checked the study, the offices, and finally entered the private library where Calder kept documents related to the business. She did not find anything at first. She searched through drawers and shelves quietly, knowing time was limited. Then, hidden near the back of a cabinet, she discovered a leather-bound book. It was Elodie's transaction journal. She opened it carefully. Inside were lists of art pieces, payments, and coded notes that revealed a pattern of counterfeit deals. Elodie had been selling forged artworks and using Calder's accounts to launder the profits. Jalea felt a surge of anger and triumph. The journal was reckless, arrogant, and the exact mistake she hoped for. She photographed every page with steady hands, careful not to leave any trace of tampering. As she worked, she sensed footsteps approaching. Her heart jumped. She closed the journal and returned it to its hiding place just as the door opened. Elodie entered, holding a folder. Her eyebrows lifted when she saw Jalea. "I did not expect you here," she said. Jalea lowered her gaze and replied softly, "I could not sleep. I needed fresh air." The trembling in her voice was deliberate. Elodie studied her for a moment, satisfied that Jalea remained the fragile woman she believed her to be. She moved past Jalea without suspicion and placed the folder on the desk. Jalea left the room calmly and headed toward the nursery, maintaining her slow pace. Once inside, she allowed herself a quiet breath of relief. She stood beside the crib, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. The sight reminded her of the promise she made in the hospital. She would not allow her child to grow up under lies or danger. That night, Calder returned late, tired and irritable. He complained about the company's financial strain and asked Jalea if she had taken her medication. She nodded again and pretended to be distant. The more she hid her true strength, the more confident Calder grew in his illusion of control. When the house fell silent, Jalea sat alone in the dim nursery. She held the baby close and whispered, "They think I am weak. Let them think so a little longer." Her voice remained steady. Her eyes held the cold clarity of someone who had chosen survival over fear. She now had evidence. She had purpose. She had time. And she had the element of surprise. The invitation to the private auction arrived 2 weeks after Jalea found Elodie's journal. Calder placed the envelope on the dining table with a confident smile, as if granting her a privilege. Jalea sat across from him, feeding their daughter with quiet grace. She lifted her eyes briefly, allowing him to see nothing more than fatigue. Calder tapped the envelope. "You need to be there. Investors expect the family to appear united. You only have to sign a few documents. It will lighten the load on my side." His tone suggested that her presence was an inconvenience he needed to manage. Jalea nodded slowly. "If that helps you, I will attend." She kept her voice soft and compliant. Inside, she felt the cold tightening of purpose. She knew he wanted her signature to unlock something he had no right to sell. On the afternoon of the auction, Jalea prepared with deliberate precision. She chose a black fitted suit tailored from the finest wool, with clean lines and a sharp collar that framed her neck elegantly. Her hair, usually tied or worn loose during her act of fragility, was styled neatly behind her ears. The transformation felt like reclaiming a part of herself Calder thought he had broken. When she descended the stairs, Calder stared at her in surprise. His mouth parted slightly, and his eyes scanned the suit with irritation. "You look very formal," he said. "This event is supposed to be discreet, not dramatic." Jalea met his gaze with quiet steadiness. "I will not embarrass you." She knew that reassuring him was the easiest way to let him underestimate her. The auction hall was a luxurious space filled with private collectors, investors, and members of the Whitlock board. The air smelled of polished wood and old wealth. A man named Victor Langford, head of the Whitlock auction division, greeted Calder warmly. He shook Jalia's hand with polite surprise, clearly not expecting her presence. Victor had always respected her intuitive eye for authenticity, even before Calder pushed her away from company matters. Elodie arrived moments later, dressed in a silver gown that caught every beam of light. She walked with calculated confidence, approaching Jalia with a sweet smile that barely concealed her resentment. "You made an effort today," she said. "I almost did not recognize you." Jalia remained calm. "I am feeling stronger." She lifted her eyes and held Elodie's stare without blinking. Elodie leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Be careful not to overdo it. You know stress is not good for new mothers." The threat was subtle but familiar. Before Elodie could move away, Jalia's gaze dropped to the necklace around her neck. "Your pendant is counterfeit," Jalia said quietly. "The original piece has deeper refraction in the stones and a different clasp. Someone tricked you, or you chose the imitation knowingly." Elodie stiffened. "That is impossible." "It is as real as your title here," Jalia replied. Her tone stayed gentle, which somehow made the words hit harder. For the first time, Elodie's expression betrayed fear. She stepped back, trying to collect herself before rejoining Calder. As guests settled, Calder stood on the platform to introduce the featured artwork. He spoke with theatrical confidence, presenting a painting he claimed to own fully. Jalia's eyes followed every gesture, noting the way Calder avoided looking at her directly. She understood why. He knew the contract was questionable, even if he believed she was too weak to challenge him. When the bidding reached its highest tension, Calder lifted the gavel. "This piece will be transferred once the documents are signed. My wife will provide her signature shortly." Jalia rose from her seat. Her movements were unhurried but firm, and the room grew quiet as she stepped forward. Victor looked startled, sensing something was about to shift. Jalia faced the investors. "This painting is not Calder's property. It belongs to the Rosewood Trust, established before my marriage. Its transfer is restricted. Calder has no authority to sell it." A wave of murmurs rippled through the hall. Victor's eyes widened as he checked the paperwork. Calder stiffened, gripping the gavel tightly. "What are you talking about?" Calder snapped. "You are confused. Sit down." Jalia met his fury with calm clarity. "I am not confused. I reviewed the trust details myself. You overlooked the conditions because you assumed I would never regain my strength." Elodie stepped forward, her voice trembling. "She is lying. Calder only followed the procedures you approved." Jalia turned to her. "You should be careful today. Lies can be traced, books can be found, signatures can be compared." Her voice carried a quiet threat that silenced Elodie instantly. The board members exchanged tense looks. Investors leaned forward, waiting for Calder's reaction. Jalia held her ground. She had chosen this moment with precision, and now the illusion Calder built was about to crack. Silence filled the auction hall after Jalia's declaration. The investors glanced at one another with growing suspicion, and Victor Langford examined the paperwork again with a furrowed brow. Calder's expression shifted from confidence to panic, although he attempted to mask it behind a strained smile. Calder stepped toward her. "Jalia, you are tired. You misread the documents. Sit down and let me handle this." Jalia kept her gaze steady. "I understand the trust better than you think. The painting is protected under the Rosewood Inheritance Clause. Any attempt to transfer it without the trustees' approval violates the contract." Victor cleared his throat. "Mr. Whitlock, she is correct. This clause supersedes your marital rights over the asset." Calder's composure cracked. He turned sharply toward Jalia. His voice dropped to a hiss meant only for her. "You planned this." Jalia did not flinch. "I acted because you pushed me to it." Before Calder could respond, Elodie hurried to his side. Her face had lost all color, and her hands trembled. She tried to speak with authority, but her voice wavered. "This is absurd. Calder made all decisions with her consent. She is only upset because of her fragile state." Several board members eyed Elodie suspiciously. They had tolerated her presence, but her attempt to discredit Jalia now seemed desperate. Jalia watched her carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. She turned toward Victor. "Since we are discussing transparency, there is something else the board should see." Jalia reached into her purse and retrieved her phone. She scrolled calmly, ignoring the way Calder's breath quickened. These are records of recent transactions made under Calder's authority. Funds from the Whitlock accounts were used to purchase several artworks. Calder forced a laugh. Many purchases are required for the foundation. Jalea does not understand the financial structure. Jalea continued as if he had not spoken. The issue is that these artworks are counterfeit. They were ordered through private channels managed by Elodie Laurent. She looked directly at Elodie. Your journal was very detailed. Elodie stumbled backward slightly. You are lying. I never kept any journal. Jalea raised her phone. I photographed every page. Her tone remained calm, but each word landed with the precision of a blade. The entries include dates, amounts, and recipients. They also reveal that Calder used the company's shared funds, which is grounds for fraud if done without proper authorization. Victor stepped forward with widening eyes. He asked, Mrs. Whitlock, do you have copies of these images? I do, she answered. I can share them with the board now. Elodie's panic rose visibly. Her voice broke. This is Calder's fault. He forced me to follow his instructions. I tried to warn him that this would not work. Calder snapped, do not turn this on me. You handled the purchases. They argued in front of everyone, their alliance crumbling in real time. The investors murmured louder, horrified at the unfolding scene. Jalea watched them without a hint of satisfaction. She felt only a quiet certainty that the truth had finally reached the surface. Victor raised his hand to silence the room. Given this new information, I must suspend the auction. We will investigate immediately. Calder's voice cracked with desperation. You cannot do this. My reputation is on the line. Victor replied calmly. The company's stability is the priority. Jalea stepped closer to Calder. Her voice remained soft, but the calmness in it carried more weight than any threat. You tried to take everything from me. You believed I would be too weak to fight back. Calder opened his mouth, but no words came. Then Elodie made one final desperate attempt. She faced the board and shouted, She is framing us. She has been unstable for months. She should not be trusted. Jalea lifted her chin. If you believe that, you may listen to this. She pressed play on her phone and held it toward the lawyers present. Elodie's own voice echoed through the room, recorded inside the restroom weeks earlier, describing the plan to declare Jalea mentally unfit and take her child. The room turned cold. Elodie's knees nearly gave out. Victor exhaled deeply. This is serious. I will alert the authorities. Calder stared at Jalea with a mix of fear and disbelief. He finally understood that the woman he tried to discard had rebuilt herself with enough strength to destroy the entire foundation of his world, and she had not even struck her final blow yet. The investigation team arrived at the Whitlock estate early the next morning. Their cars lined the driveway in a quiet but decisive formation. Officers from the Economic Crimes Unit stepped out with files, badges, and unwavering expressions that left no room for negotiation. Jalea watched their arrival from the window of the nursery. Her daughter slept peacefully in her crib, unaware that the world outside was shifting in ways that would protect her future. Calder rushed down the stairs when the officers rang the doorbell. His voice trembled between anger and desperation. There must be some mistake. You cannot come in without warning. The lead officer, Captain Hale, showed his identification and spoke with calm authority. Captain Hale was known for handling high-profile cases. He addressed Calder without hostility, but with unmistakable firmness. We have a warrant to investigate allegations of fraud, money laundering, and unauthorized use of company funds. Step aside. Calder's face drained of color. This is ridiculous. My wife is behind this. She has been emotional and unstable. Jalea descended the staircase slowly, her posture straight and composed. She no longer wore the loose clothing that represented fragility. Today she wore a simple cream blouse and tailored trousers, a quiet symbol of the strength she no longer needed to hide. She reached the bottom of the stairs and met Captain Hale's eyes briefly, acknowledging him with a respectful nod. Calder pointed at her. She is doing this out of revenge. Jalea spoke without raising her voice. I provided documents because the company deserves the truth. You used its funds for personal gain. That has nothing to do with me. The officers moved past Calder to begin their search. Tension filled the house like a storm waiting to break. Drawers opened, Files were removed. Computers were examined. Every corner of Calder's carefully hidden dealings was now exposed to the day. Elodie arrived soon after, breathless and terrified. She wore a coat over a hurriedly chosen dress and looked as though she had not slept at all. When she saw the officers inside the estate, her anxiety sharpened. "Calder, what is happening? Why are they here?" Calder glared at her. "This is your fault. If you had been more careful, none of this would have happened." Elodie shook her head rapidly. "You told me everything would be fine. You said your wife would never fight back." Jalia stepped forward, her voice soft yet unyielding. "You both underestimated the truth, and you underestimated me." Elodie turned on her with a wild stare. "You planned this from the start." "No," Jalia replied. "I reacted when you threatened my child." Captain Hale approached them. "We will need both of you to accompany us for questioning. There is substantial evidence of coordinated misconduct." Calder staggered backward. "You cannot arrest me. I have meetings. I have responsibilities." Hale maintained his calm tone. "Your responsibilities now lie with this investigation." While the officers continued collecting documents, Jalia retrieved a prepared envelope from the sideboard. She walked toward Elodie and extended it with steady hands. "This is for you." Elodie snatched it, expecting more accusations. When she opened it, confusion replaced anger. She stared at the document inside. "An eviction notice?" Her voice cracked. "The apartment was mine. Calder gave it to me." Jalia responded with composure. "The apartment was purchased through a company registered under my ownership. The deed has carried my signature since the day it was bought." Elodie's face twisted with disbelief. "That cannot be true." "It is," Jalia said. "You never checked because you were too confident." Elodie's breathing quickened. "You knew all along." Jalia met her gaze calmly. "I do not compete with you. You misunderstand your importance. I simply protect what belongs to me. I also remove what contaminates my home." Her tone held no malice, only certainty. Two officers stepped beside Elodie to escort her out. Tears streamed down Elodie's face as she looked at the ground, shaken by the sudden humiliation. Guests from neighboring houses watched from a distance as she was guided to a waiting car with trembling hands and shattered pride. Calder faced Jalia one last time before being led outside for questioning. His voice broke with fear. "Please talk to them. Stop this. I can fix everything." Jalia studied him, seeing a man built on lies finally facing consequences. "You abandoned me in the hospital and planned to take my child. You ended this yourself." Calder called her name again, but she turned away. There was nothing left to say. Once the officers left with Calder and Elodie, silence settled through the house. Jalia walked back to the nursery, where her daughter stirred and reached out with small fingers. Jalia lifted her and held her close, feeling the warmth of a future no longer clouded by betrayal. Her world had been shaken, but what remained standing was hers alone. The days that followed were filled with hearings, reports, and investigations. Jalia attended only when required, always composed, always clear. Calder lost access to his accounts, his properties, and his position. Each revelation against him came with undeniable evidence. He tried to fight, but every argument collapsed under the weight of his own actions. Jalia remained distant through it all, focused only on protecting her daughter. One afternoon, she stepped out of the courthouse with her lawyer and found Calder waiting near the steps. His shoulders slumped and his eyes were hollow with desperation. He approached her quickly, almost stumbling over his own feet. "Jalia, please, I am begging you. Help me fix this. I have nothing left." She stopped a few steps away from him, keeping her daughter's carrier close. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the man who had tried to erase her future before she had even taken her first breath. Calder raised trembling hands. "I know I failed you. I know I hurt you. Just let me be part of her life. I cannot lose her too." Jalia watched him quietly. She felt no anger, only clarity. "You already abandoned her. You abandoned both of us when you made those plans with Elodie. There is nothing left for you to lose that you did not choose to throw away." He shook his head frantically. "People make mistakes. You can forgive. You always forgave before." "I forgave weakness," she replied, "not cruelty." He stepped closer. his voice breaking. I am her father. Jalia's expression stayed calm. You gave up that title the moment you tried to take my child from me. Parenthood is not a right, it is a responsibility. You never carried it. A court officer approached to escort Calder to his next interview, but he lingered for one last attempt. Please, Jalia, I love you. His voice cracked on the final word. Jalia looked at him with gentle finality. Love does not destroy. Whatever you felt, it was not love. Calder's face collapsed as the officer guided him away. He did not look back. Later that week, Jalia met with her attorney to finalize the divorce papers. She signed her name with steady hands. Her lawyer, Mr. Wright Hadley, placed his glasses down and said, This grants you full custody and full control of your assets. You are free from all financial entanglements with him. She nodded in gratitude. Thank you for standing by me. It is what your family would have wanted, he said gently. 3 years passed. The Rosewood Art Foundation thrived under Jalia's leadership. Her reputation grew as a woman with unmatched discernment and quiet strength. Patrons admired her ability to elevate artists with authenticity and integrity. She earned respect without demanding it, and her decisions carried the confidence of someone who had rebuilt her life on solid ground. On a warm afternoon, she walked through the sunlit garden of her estate. Her daughter, now a lively toddler named Amara, ran across the grass with unsteady but determined steps. Her laughter rang bright against the breeze. Jalia followed behind her with a soft smile. She had learned to balance power with tenderness, and she held both with ease. Amara paused to pick a small yellow flower and lifted it toward her mother. Jalia knelt and kissed the top of her head. Thank you, my little star. As they continued walking, Jalia felt the peace she had earned. She had survived betrayal, cruelty, and near loss. She had rebuilt what was broken. Most importantly, she had created a world where her daughter would grow up loved and protected. She looked toward the horizon, golden with late afternoon light. Her voice was quiet but certain. Strength speaks loudest when it does not need to shout. Behind her, the past faded like a shadow. Ahead of her, everything shone with possibility. She stepped forward with her daughter's hand in hers, embracing the new dawn she had fought for.